So my wife, Joanne, the first 15 years of her teaching career, she taught at a parochial school that was affiliated with the United Church of Christ. I always found it ironic that I ended up going to what was technically a United Church of Christ seminary after I had that much experience with the United Church of Christ before that. So she taught 15 years there. And her first year there, her first Christmas there, I asked her about the obligatory Christmas program. Well, when will the Christmas program be? And she said, well, there won't be one. How can you have a grade school and not have a Christmas program? I believe that's against the law in this country, isn't it? So I said, how could you not have one? And she said, well, they don't do a Christmas program. They do an Epiphany program in January. Now, you got to remember, I was brand new to the faith at that stage in my life. I've shared before that I was raised a godless heathen, and it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I started even going to church. So I was still very wet behind the ears, religiously speaking, when I had this conversation. Had no idea what Epiphany meant. So if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know what Epiphany means, don't worry about it. We'll get to that in a minute. But I had no idea. This must be one goofy grade school that they don't do Christmas and they do this something called Epiphany in January. Well, it turned out to not be such a goofy grade school. In fact, when Sam came along, we actually sent him there. But they did an Epiphany program. And they tried it. I don't know how long before we got there they did it, but for a few years after we got there, they did this Epiphany program in January. I guess they finally just caved to the pressure, because after a couple, 3 years of that, after we were there, they dumped that idea altogether and went back to the more traditional Christmas program. But they celebrated Epiphany. Christmas is over. It's ancient history. Santa and his sleigh have been safely tucked away for another year. All the Christmas carols have been shelved until about Thanksgiving Day of this year. How many of you listen to a lot of Christmas music during Christmas? Honestly, I listen, my two stations in town are WBGL and is it the Chief that's 92.5? Those are my two stations, mostly WBGL, but when I just need to hear a little bit of my old-time rock and roll, I turn to 92.5. Both of those stations go to All Christmas on Thanksgiving Day and Forever and Ever Amen. And the car we're driving right now has satellite radio, and that had 2 or 3 stations of All Christmas. It was just All Christmas everywhere. And I don't know about you, but by the time Christmas got here, I was a little sick of hearing the Beach Boys sing Christmas to me. So I was kind of glad that is over. New Year's Day has even come and gone. If you're like me, your New Year's Eve was rocking. It consists of doing chores and falling asleep. Does that sound pretty much like what you want? I see a lot of heads nodding. A whole lot of college football has gone under the bridge here in the past few days. And that brings us to today. And today we're going to talk about the amazing Afflatus. Now, like me with Epiphany, back when I was talking about that before, when I had no idea what Epiphany is, you might well be sitting here saying, Afflatus, what is that, like somehow related to that duck that talks about Aflac? What is Afflatus? Afflatus is a Latin term that literally translates inspiration. And another definition of it is to be blown into by a divine wind. It's a rush of unexpected breath. It kind of makes me think almost of Pentecost with the wind that came in among the gathered there. A powerful force that will render the receiver of it nearly helpless, is what the definition says. It's the impulse of creative power. An inspiration considered to be, and here it is, of divine origin. An inspiration of divine origin. It's a staggering, stunning blow of a new idea. Or a recipient who's unable to even explain what they've received. So Afflatus really is another word for Epiphany. An Epiphany is a Christian festival that falls on the 6th of January. Anybody know what's special about the 6th of January? It is the 12th day of Christmas. If you know the song, the 6th of January is the 12th day of Christmas. Commemorates the manifestation of Jesus to the Gentiles through the arrival of the Magi, or the wise men. So these sudden, intuitive insights into the essential meaning of something. That's what an epiphany is. It's often initiated by a rather simple occurrence or experience, it says. Okay, so a sudden intuitive insight into the essential meaning of something initiated by a simple occurrence. A baby born in a manger. So I want you to hear these words, and you've heard them a gazillion times before, but hear it with new ears this time as you hear the story of the wise men from the Gospel of Matthew. As Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the one born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him." Well, when King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all of Jerusalem with him. When he called together all the people's chief priests and the teachers of the law, he asked them where this Messiah was to be born. Well, in Bethlehem of Judea, for this is what the prophet has written. "But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." And then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them exactly what time the star appeared. He then sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search carefully for this child. And as soon as you find him, report to me, so that I may too go and worship him." Well, after they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star that they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. And when they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and they worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. You ever wondered what would happen if it were three wise women who had made the trip? They would have asked for directions. They would have arrived on time. They would have helped deliver the baby. They would have cleaned the stable, made a casserole, and brought gifts that the baby could actually use. That's what would have happened had it been three wise women. Now, we all know this story of Epiphany, of the wise men, right? We know the story. We know that there were, for instance, three wise men, right? Wrong. The Bible doesn't say that. It doesn't say anything about how many of them there were. It just talks about how many kinds of gifts they brought. Okay, well, we know that they were kings who came from the Orient, right? Wrong. All we know is that they came from somewhere in the east. Probably historians think Babylon or Persia, which is Iraq and Iran now. We know that they had names, Melchior, Balthazar, and Caspar, right? No, that's a later addition as well. The Bible doesn't say that either. You see, back in the day, nobody celebrated Christmas. Think about that. This thing that we pin as being the pinnacle of Christianity, because it's when Jesus came to walk among us. Back in the day, nobody celebrated it. Because historically, a baby in a manger was relatively unimportant when compared to the events that proved to the world who the baby actually was. That's the key. Not that the baby was unimportant, but it was the events that proved who the baby was that they saw as so important. These events I'm talking about, God's way of saying, pay attention, because this is the guy that I'm sending. Well, what are these events? Well, there's Epiphany. I said it falls on January 6th, the 12th day of Christmas. By the way, the January 6th, the 12th day of Christmas, is the day you're supposed to get 12 drummers drumming. Never a bad idea in my mind, right, Mike? Yeah. And it's the day we acknowledge the arrival of the wise men. We celebrated on the Sunday before the 6th, ergo today is Epiphany Sunday. So the wise men are remembered on Epiphany because they represent the revelation of Jesus to the Gentiles. But Epiphany used to actually celebrate more than just the wise men coming and the revelation of Jesus. It remembers other revelations of Jesus as well. Jesus' first miracle, when he changed the water to wine at the wedding of Cana in Galilee, that's a revelation of who Jesus is. Jesus' baptism, where God comes down and acknowledges who he is. Those are all, I can't say that word today, John, revelations of Jesus. So Epiphany covers this wide spread of the revelation of Jesus. And these three things are all lumped together to symbolize that revelation of God through Jesus Christ.